Look at this graph.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at a lot of graphs today. Okay, so gun to your head. If you were forced to make a choice and pick a team who you think is going to win a championship, logically, it would seem as though the best choice, most of the time, would be to just pick the best team. And if we're talking MLS, the best team is the winner of the Supporters' Shield. I mean, not only have they already proven themselves by accumulating the most points in the regular season, but they also have a bye in the first round of the playoffs and get to host every playoff game, including MLS Cup. So, hell yeah, I'm taking the Supporters' Shield winner. The odds are totally stacked in their favor.
You idiot. You stupid bitch.
Well, actually, if you did pick the Supporters' Shield winner to win MLS Cup, you'd probably end up dead. Because as it turns out, it's pretty damn rare that a team wins both the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup in the same year. How rare, you ask? Well, in the last 10 years, only once has a team won both trophies, that of course being 2017 Toronto FC, one of the best teams in MLS history. How can that be? Why don't we see more Supporters' Shield winners win MLS Cup? Let's look at the numbers. I told you about the last 10 years, but let's back it up and look at the whole history of MLS, all 26 years of it. In 26 years, there have been 7 teams to win both the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup. Doing the math, 7 divided by 26, that comes out to about 26.9% of the time there are teams that win both Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup. Okay, so a little more than 1 in every 4 years. That doesn't sound so bad. Wait a minute. Let's break this up into different eras and start off by zooming in on these first couple years. In the first 6 years of the league's existence, there were 3 Supporters' Shield winners who also went on to win MLS Cup. That is a whopping 50% of teams to win both. In the next 10 years, there were 3 more Supporters' Shield winners to win MLS Cup, dropping that number from 50% to 30%. And as previously mentioned, the last 10 years, we've seen just 1 team win both the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup, dropping that number again from 30% to 10%. So it's definitely trending downward. It is definitely becoming more rare for teams to achieve this double. Oh, and by the way, this isn't just an MLS thing. I looked at the other professional sports in this country and compared their top seeds in their respected leagues winning the championship. Now, major disclaimer. This is not a perfect science because these other leagues do not play balanced schedules. So when I say the team with the best record, you have to take it with a big grain of salt. Anyways, in the last 26 years, since 1996, Major League Baseball has seen 7 teams with the best record win the World Series. The National Football League has seen 6 teams with the best record win the Super Bowl. The National Basketball Association has seen 9 teams with the best record win the NBA Finals. And the National Hockey League has seen 5 teams with the best record win the Stanley Cup. If you compare each league to MLS...
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
God, you can't see any differences here. You know what? No, screw that. Let's scrap that. Instead, let's look at all of the overall positions to win the championship and then divide it by 26 because, MLS has been around for 26 years. And that will give us an average standing of champion. The average standing of champion for Major League Soccer is 3.69, which happens to be within 1 of every league except for the NBA. The NBA average standing of a champion is well below everyone else at just 2.58. The NBA playoffs utilize a best-of-7 format, so yeah, it makes sense that the best teams will come out on top more often than, say, the NFL, who has single elimination, because it's one thing to beat a better team once, it's another thing to have to beat a better team 4 times. With Major League Baseball, I just put a giant asterisk next to it, because even though they do have a best-of-7 format, because the schedule is so wildly unbalanced, what with the National League and American League barely playing each other during the season, it's hard to really determine who is the best team. Now with the NHL, okay, I just can't figure this out. Admittedly, I'm not a hockey guy. I've just never watched a ton of it, so I don't really understand it. Yeah, someone who watches hockey, help explain this to me. Now, despite the MLS playoff field expanding to 14 teams a few years ago, the lowest overall position to win MLS Cup is still just 8. This explains why MLS has the second best average standing of a champion for American pro sports leagues. If we break down the numbers, the number 1 team, aka the Supporter Shield winner, has won the MLS Cup more times than anyone else, with 7. Interestingly enough, the next most common champions by overall position on the table is both 2nd and 8th, both winning MLS Cup 4 times. Yes, if you are the 8th overall position on the table, by the numbers, you have just as good of a chance to win MLS Cup as the 2nd overall position on the table. Overall positions 3, 4, and 5 have won MLS Cup 3 times. The 7th overall position has won MLS Cup 2 times. And surprisingly, the 6th overall position has never won MLS Cup. The 6th overall team in 2022 was Red Bull New York. So, this is not so surprising that that trend continued. So what this means for MLS is that upsets happen in single elimination, but it's rare to see a team string together multiple upsets in a row. So I'm thinking it's going to be a long time before we see a 6 or 7 seed in their own conference Cinderella their way to an MLS Cup. It might not be the number 1 seed overall to win the Cup, but more than likely, it will be one of the top seeds. At this point, I just wanted some kind of answer. So then I thought, well, maybe it's not about how many points you have in the regular season, but rather how in form you are to close out a season. So the last thing I did was look at the Supporter Shield winners' last 5 games of the regular season, and then compare that to the MLS Cup winners' last 5 games of the regular season. And I thought for sure we would see the MLS Cup winners have the better records, and that would explain some things. Nope. Because as it turns out, the Supporter Shield winners still do better in their last 5 games of the regular season than the MLS Cup winners. Take away the 7 seasons where a team won both Supporter Shield and MLS Cup, there were only 6 times where the MLS Cup champion had a better record over the last 5 games of the season than the Supporter Shield winner. 6 times in 19 seasons, that comes out to about 32% of the time. So, what gives? Why can't the Supporter Shield winners just win MLS Cup? Sure, you could blame it on the pressure of expectations, but that just seems like a weak cop-out to me. The real reason why you don't see more Supporter Shield winners win MLS Cup in the same season is because of the evolution of the playoff format. If you need a rundown of all the playoff formats MLS has implemented over the years, I already made a video for that during last year's playoffs. Go check that out after this one. But in short, the first couple years of MLS's existence implemented a best-of-3 format for the playoffs until MLS Cup. Then it went to a 2-leg goal aggregate series until MLS Cup. And now it's all single elimination. In best-of-3, you are more likely to see the best teams prevail because the best teams can recover after one bad result. In a 2-game goal aggregate series where both teams host a playoff game and you don't really get that much of an advantage for being the higher seed, you are still able to see teams be able to recover after one bad result. Whereas in single elimination, one bad game, hell, one bad moment, can end your season. It's not a coincidence that we've seen more teams win both the Supporter Shield and MLS Cup when it was the best-of-3 format, just like it's not a coincidence that in the NBA, number 1 overall seeds have a higher percentage of winning in 7-game series. And while I do think that eventually we'll see a team win both Supporter Shield and MLS Cup in the single elimination format, the reality is that we haven't seen it yet. And by judging how incredibly unpredictable the MLS Cup playoffs are, we might not see it for a while. Until then, sorry, Supporter Shield winners. You might not win the important trophy that everyone cares about, but hey, at least you get a cool-looking plate thing. And to me, that still counts for something.